The smoky, cumin-scented air from a nearby kebab stand washed over my face. I was chewing on a grilled kebab when I lifted my head, my eyes casually sweeping over a group of girls in short skirts. A flash of long, pale legs piqued my interest. Beside me, Victoria Hayes's phone screen lit up. She hastily stood up to leave, tossing over her shoulder. Something came up at work. I thoughtfully handed her my car keys, reminding her to drive safely. An hour later, a text message appeared on my phone. It was a photo from Ethan Cole. In the picture, Victoria was in a kitchen, wearing an apron and looking busy a side of her I hadn't seen in a long, long time. I took a screenshot and a flash. Thanks for the assist, buddy. Chapter 1. Big H, that son of a bitch is clearly provoking you. How are you not blowing a gasket? David Big D Miller, sitting next to me, craned his neck to see my screen, his face a perfect picture of how the hell can you stand this? I glanced at his big face, which was practically glued to my phone, and scooted away in annoyance. She's just my girlfriend. I'm not planning on marrying her. Let her do whatever she wants. David's eyes nearly popped out of his head. Are you serious, man? Didn't you and Victoria meet each other's parents at the beginning of the year? What happened to getting married? I grabbed my beer mug from the table and clinked it against his, splashing a few drops. So what? With the way she's messing around with another guy, if I actually married her, wouldn't I just be asking to be cheated on? Let's drop this depressing topic. Let's eat. While we were talking, I noticed that the message Ethan had sent me had been deleted. After we'd had our fill of food and drinks, I took a cab back to the apartment Victoria and I rented. I showered, tossed my dirty clothes into the washing machine, dried my hair, and went straight to bed to conserve my energy. Because I knew there was a battle to be fought later. I don't know how much time passed, but I was woken by the sound of the door opening. I opened my eyes and checked the time. It was 11 o'clock at night. I got up and walked out of the bedroom. Victoria was in the foyer, taking off her shoes. The faint dark circles under her eyes revealed her exhaustion. If this were the old me, I'd have rushed over to hug her tenderly, massage her feet, ask if she was hungry, and practically offer to bathe her myself. Of course, I was still planning to hug her now. Chapter 2. Seeing my expression, Victoria said with a hint of apology, "Something came up at the office unexpectedly, so I'm a little late. Sorry for waking you. Why don't you go back to sleep? I'll try to be quiet." I didn't say a word. I just took out my phone and showed Victoria the picture Ethan had sent me. When Victoria saw the photo, the color drained from her face, leaving it ghostly white. She stammered an explanation. Ethan had a fever again. You know he doesn't have many friends here, so he could only ask me for help. I didn't tell you because I was afraid you'd worry. Please don't be mad. I deliberately put on a stern face. I'm in a very bad mood right now. You have to find a way to make me happy. If you don't put out this fire, I'll be too angry to sleep tonight. Victoria bit her lip, hesitating before asking, "So, what do you want me to do?" I immediately turned around, pulled a black Spider-Man cosplay outfit from the closet, and tossed it to her. I said with a grin, "Change into this, and I won't be angry anymore." Victoria's face darkened as she looked at the costume in her hands. She made a last-ditch effort to resist. "I'm a little tired today, and this outfit is too—" Hearing her refusal, I immediately hardened my expression. "You didn't sound tired when you were running off to cook for Ethan. Your double standards are—" Hearing my voice get louder and louder, clearly heading for a fight, Victoria instantly surrendered. Fine, I'll do it for you, okay? But can we not use this outfit?" No. Victoria reluctantly changed into the costume. She knew very well that giving in to me would be over in about an hour, but if we argued, neither of us would get any sleep tonight. After she changed, I cheerfully pulled her into the bedroom and had her get into the pose I wanted. When we were done, Victoria went to the bathroom to shower. I followed her in, using the excuse that we could save time by showering together and get to bed sooner. We went at it again in the shower. By the time I had dried Victoria's hair and everything was done, it was already 1:30 in the morning. Lying in bed, I pulled Victoria into my arms. I had to admit, with the weather getting colder, sleeping with a beautiful woman in my arms was incredibly comfortable. After I closed my eyes, Victoria suddenly opened hers, carefully studying my face. Her gaze was dark and unreadable. Chapter 3. I remember when the college admission results came out. I scraped by, just barely making the cutoff for Hampton University. The first time I saw Victoria was during our first class meeting. I'm not exaggerating when that girl stood there. It was like she had her own built-in soft focus filter. Even the sycamore trees outside the window seemed to straighten up, trying to get a better look. I'll admit it. I was a hopeless case for a pretty face who had never seen the world. My eyes were practically welded to her. I couldn't look away. Unfortunately, back then, I was a total rookie when it came to love. My 18 years of being single since birth having left my experience bank completely empty. Looking at Victoria was like looking at a fragile piece of art. I wanted to get closer but was afraid my clumsy self would mess things up. All I could do was play out the drama of can I win her over, 800 times a day in my head. The turning point came the day my roommate got a girlfriend. When he came back to the dorm holding a bouquet of roses, all my other roommates turned to look at me, the last single man standing. Spurred on by their encouragement, the very next morning I launched what could only be described as a full-blown, almost suicidal offensive to win Victoria over. At first, my pursuit of Victoria didn't go smoothly. When I confessed my feelings, she calmly rejected me. But I didn't give up. I pursued her relentlessly for 2.5 years. Winning her over became an obsession. I tried every trick in the book to please her, finding all sorts of ways to give her gifts. I even secretly sent her best friend, Chloe Thompson, some money on Venmo to put in a good word for me. Perhaps she was moved by my persistence, because in our junior year she finally agreed to be my girlfriend. But she had one condition. After graduation, she wanted me to stay in Kingsport with her. I was from Louisville, and she was from Irvington. Both cities were in the state of Hamilton. Kingsport was the state capital. The drive from Kingsport to my home in Louisville was less than 3 hours, so her request wasn't a difficult one for me to meet. Chapter 4. After we made it official, I felt like I was drawn to her by an invisible string, always wanting to be near. I had to see her almost every day, listen to her talk about her day, and see the light in her eyes. Only then could that strange emptiness in my heart be filled, and only then would I feel at ease. After all, she was the girl I had worked so hard to win over. When she smiled, her eyes would curve like crescent moons, as if they were filled with starlight, making even the air around us feel sweet. Perhaps because I cherished her so much, I was always a little insecure at the beginning, afraid she would slip through my fingers if I wasn't careful. The tide of graduation pushed us forward. Luckily, we both managed to put down roots in Kingsport and find jobs. The pay wasn't great, and in a city where every square inch is worth its weight in gold, we had to count every penny if we didn't want to rely on our parents. To save money, Victoria suggested we rent a 1-bedroom apartment together. Living together, even my dreams felt sweet. During the day, we were busy with our own work, but at night, we'd return to our little sanctuary and shed the fatigue of the day. When a man and a woman live under the same roof, those subtle feelings quietly ferment in the little moments of daily life. Naturally, many things just fell into place. Chapter 5. A friend once told me when guys who've been chasing love for too long finally hold the hand of the person they've dreamed of, the light in their eyes quietly dims. It's not that the love is gone, it's that the long pursuit has ground the burning passion in their hearts down to fine dust. That heart-pounding feeling where even the air seemed to tremble when you first saw her was slowly chipped away by a dull knife through countless nights spent waiting for a reply, through carefully planned dates that were gently declined. When you finally break down that door, what you hold in your hand is less the long dreamed of tenderness, and more an obsession with finishing what you started. It's like solving a math problem you've been stuck on for ages. The moment the answer is revealed, hidden within the ecstasy is the exhaustion of a burden finally lifted. That obsession, simmered over time, had long since brewed pure affection into a bitter wine. But you can't generalize about people. After I had Victoria completely for the first time, the only thing in my heart was a sense of responsibility. She had given herself to me completely, and I had to be responsible for her. So during the first Christmas after we moved in together, I asked if she wanted to come home with me to Louisville for a few days. After she had a good time, I would drive her back to Irvington. This way, my parents could meet her, and her parents could meet me. If her parents were satisfied with me, I would propose to her. If they weren't, I would just have to try harder. Victoria naturally guessed my intentions right away, but unfortunately, she refused. She told me, "I just got confirmed in my position not long ago. If I get married now, my boss might have an issue with it, and I probably won't be considered for promotions." I was a little disappointed, but I could understand. Many companies these days are very particular about female employees getting married and pregnant. Because of labor laws, if a company doesn't grant maternity leave, it's an open and shut case in court. If you're married, the company will definitely consider the possibility of you having children, and promotions will generally be off the table. Chapter 6. In the third year of living with Victoria, she had a small breakthrough in her career and was promoted to team leader at her company. Although it wasn't a high-ranking position, it had leader in the title, making her a junior manager. Her income also increased significantly, which was exciting for both of us. That Christmas, Victoria proactively suggested going back to my home to meet my parents. On the way there, she was a nervous wreck, constantly asking me about my parents' personalities, what they liked, what their pet peeves were, afraid she would do something wrong. She had carefully selected many health supplements and gourmet foods. Bags of all sizes filled up half the trunk space. It was clear how much this meeting meant to her. When my parents saw me bring a girlfriend home, the smiles never left their faces. They were incredibly welcoming. They bustled about in the kitchen, preparing a full table of delicious food, all specially made for Victoria. During the meal, they kept putting food on her plate, asking after her well-being. The day before I was to take Victoria back, my mom pulled me aside and quietly told me to discuss with Victoria when her parents would be free. The two families should meet up and have a proper talk about the wedding. My mom's a bit old-fashioned. She felt that since Victoria and I had been living together for 3 years, if I didn't end up marrying her, it would be bad for Victoria's reputation and would definitely affect her future marriage prospects. She repeatedly warned me not to do anything to let Victoria down and not to be an irresponsible scumbag. I, of course, agreed to everything. I loved Victoria from the bottom of my heart and dreamed of making her my wife. How could I possibly let her down? After Victoria met my parents, I drove her back to her hometown in Irvington. This time, it was my turn to be nervous. My heart was in my throat the whole way, worried that Victoria's parents wouldn't like me. I had specially prepared a trunk full of cartons of cigarettes and expensive liquor. Seeing all of it, Victoria laughed and teased me. "Looks like the boyfriend is here to make an honest woman out of her." The moment I met Victoria, parents, my anxious heart finally settled. Mr. and Mrs. Hayes were exceptionally easygoing people, speaking politely and kindly. They weren't as difficult to get along with as I had imagined. Of course, this also had something to do with my family's situation. My family runs a small business. My mom has a sinecure at my maternal grandfather's factory. We weren't fabulously wealthy and couldn't compare to the genuinely rich kids. But if we planned to settle down in Kingsport, my family could afford to buy 2 houses outright with cash. I knew in my heart that parents don't necessarily expect their children to become fabulously rich, but they certainly don't want their daughter to marry a poor guy and suffer through a hard life. I completely understood that sentiment. Chapter 7. According to our original plan, Victoria and I were supposed to bring both sets of parents to Kingsport over Memorial Day weekend this year for a meal to discuss our marriage. If everything went smoothly, we would be engaged by Christmas and have a grand wedding the following year. During that time, my mind was filled with dreams for the future, endlessly picturing our married life together. But just then, Ethan Cole appeared out of nowhere, shattering the peace. The first time I saw Ethan was outside Victoria's office building. It was pouring that day, with raindrops the size of marbles hammering against the car windows, blurring my vision. Victoria was still working on getting her driver's license, and usually took the subway to and from work. I had made a special trip to pick her up. When I arrived at her company just as I was about to let her into the car, Victoria smiled and waved at me. Standing beside her was a strange man. As she approached, she introduced him as Ethan Cole, a new member of her department. He happened to live on our way home, and she asked if I could give him a ride. To be honest, I'm not a generous person, especially in relationships. I'm a bit possessive, and I don't like seeing my girlfriend getting too close to other men. But I'm not the type to make a scene over nothing. He was her colleague, after all. Refusing would put Victoria in an awkward position, so despite my reluctance, I nodded and let Ethan get in the car. After I dropped Ethan off, he didn't even give me a proper look as he got out. He just said a simple thanks to Victoria and walked into the building without a backward glance. The atmosphere in the car was a bit heavy on the way back. I couldn't hold it in any longer and sullenly told Victoria to keep her distance from this Ethan guy in the future. I even specifically pointed out that the way Ethan had looked at her felt off. A man might not understand a woman, but he definitely understands another man. In Ethan's eyes, I saw a bottomless pit of desire directed at Victoria, but Victoria didn't take my words seriously at all. Instead, she grumbled, "You're just being petty. We were just giving a colleague a ride. Is it really that big of a deal?" Later that night, after a shower, I ultimately let my little head do the thinking for my big head. Not only did I manage to calm myself down, but I also went and apologized to Victoria. We then had a wonderful night together. Chapter 8. Truthfully, I knew Victoria wasn't the type to have a change of heart easily. I had always trusted her completely. She had an innate sense of propriety, something I had noticed since college. During our university years, plenty of guys pursued Victoria, including some well-off rich kids, but she always maintained an "I don't want to date" in college attitude, rejecting all suitors without mercy. Those guys couldn't even give her gifts, let alone get her contact information. Most of them gave up within a month. So, throughout college, besides me shamelessly tagging along, there were hardly any other guys around her. Moreover, Victoria wasn't a gold digger. She had a strong sense of self-respect. After we got together, she never once asked me for any gifts, not even a hint. She even insisted on splitting the rent for our apartment, saying she didn't want to take advantage of me. Of course, just because she didn't ask didn't mean I wouldn't do anything. Victoria's family was of modest means, and she usually dressed very simply. I remember the day she passed her job interview, I insisted on taking her to the mall. I bought her 2 sets of decent professional outfits and a new 300 designer bags, spending over $2,000 in total. Victoria was so mad she kept pinching my arm, muttering spendthrift under her breath. But I just felt that the more she didn't want anything, the more I wanted to give her the best of everything I could. The culture of comparison among girls at school was already intense. Who knew if her company had people who loved to show off? I couldn't let her feel inferior. It was because I knew this side of Victoria that I didn't dwell on the Ethan incident after that day. Victoria was beautiful. It was normal for people to be interested in her. She had a job out in the world, and I couldn't just make her quit over something so minor. That would be a huge overreaction. It just wasn't realistic. But reality slapped me hard across the face. Chapter 9. After that incident, Victoria suddenly became busier and busier, often working late into the night and continuing to work until the early morning hours after coming home. Seeing the dark circles under her eyes grow heavier each day, I felt a mix of heartache and pity, so I offered to help her with some of her work. But whenever I brought it up, she would always find excuses to refuse. One moment she'd say I wasn't familiar with her company's business and couldn't help. The next she'd say she was worried. I was already working too hard and shouldn't concern myself. At first, I thought it was just her pride acting up again, not wanting to trouble me. So one evening, while she was in the shower, I saw her laptop open on the desk. I figured I'd act first and ask for forgiveness later, helping her with whatever I could. But when I clicked open the file she was editing, I froze. The dense spreadsheets and proposals were all under Ethan Cole's name. It turned out that all her late nights and overtime were spent helping Ethan finish his work. A nameless rage surged up from the pit of my stomach, burning away all my reason. Acting on pure instinct, I slammed open the bathroom door with a bang and started yelling at Victoria, who was showering inside, demanding to know why she had hidden this from me and spent so much time doing Ethan's work. Startled by my sudden intrusion and shouting, Victoria quickly wrapped herself in a towel. Her face was pale as she came out of the bathroom, glaring at me furiously. "What gives you the right to touch my laptop? Who said you could look at my things?" In that moment, I couldn't think about anything else. My mind was filled with images of her staying up late for Ethan, and I demanded a reasonable explanation. We argued back and forth, our voices getting louder and louder, moving from the living room to the bedroom. We fought for over an hour. Victoria's tone shifted from initial angry questioning to a softer one. She explained that Ethan was new and unfamiliar with many tasks, and as his team leader, it was her duty to help him out, assuring me it wouldn't affect the team's overall progress. Bullshit, we were in the same industry, and I knew the rules of the workplace. What kind of team leader is such a doormat that they personally do the work for an incompetent new team member? Usually it's the other way around. The leader delegates their own work to the team members. Besides, if Ethan was truly that incompetent, he wouldn't have even made it past his probation period. The company wouldn't have kept him. Unless he only passed his probation because Victoria was helping him behind the scenes. No matter how she tried to explain, I wasn't satisfied. Finally, I couldn't listen anymore. I grabbed my car keys from the sofa and started to walk out, planning to stay at a hotel for the night so we could both cool off. Victoria tried to stop me, but she was still only wrapped in a towel. She followed me to the door but then stopped, just standing there watching me with a complex look in her eyes. Lying in the hotel bed, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. The more I thought about it, the more something felt wrong. Victoria wasn't the type to accommodate others without reason. Her reaction was too abnormal. I felt like she was hiding something from me. The next day, I went to work as usual. My phone kept buzzing with text notifications. Victoria had sent me many messages and called several times, but I didn't answer. I was still fuming. It wasn't until after work, sitting in my car and watching the traffic stream by, that I slowly calmed down. Running away wouldn't solve the problem. I had to go back and ask Victoria one more time what was really going on. Chapter 10. Victoria and I sat facing each other, the air thick enough to cut with a knife. I took a deep breath and said directly, "If you're not willing to tell me the truth, then there's no point in us continuing." Victoria's gaze flickered, and she nervously twisted the hem of her clothes, remaining silent for a long time. After much hesitation, she slowly raised her head, her voice trembling almost imperceptibly as she finally told me the truth. She and Ethan were neighbors. They had attended the same elementary, middle, and high schools, making them childhood friends. Ethan grew up without a father, and his mother passed away just before the college entrance exams. The devastating blow caused him to fail his exams and repeat a year after Victoria went to college. They lost contact. She never imagined that Ethan would end up working at her company. I was just looking out for him because of our childhood friendship. And since both his parents are gone, life has been tough for him, so I wanted to help him out at work as much as I could. Victoria's voice grew quieter. I helped him with his work because he asked, and I found it hard to refuse. "Then why didn't you tell me before?" Victoria continued to explain. "I was afraid you'd overthink it. After all, we grew up together, and I've heard that many men are sensitive about that kind of thing." I still couldn't quite accept Victoria's explanation, mainly because this was the first I'd heard of her having such a saintly, self-sacrificing side, but my anger had subsided quite a bit. I thought about all the ups and downs Victoria and I had been through. The thought of breaking up with her over something like this was painful. I couldn't bear it. So I told Victoria she was not to help Ethan anymore and that she couldn't hide things from me again. If she really couldn't bring herself to tell him off, I would go and warn him for her. Victoria was probably scared by my behavior the day before and repeatedly promised it wouldn't happen again. Chapter 11. For a while after that, Victoria did indeed stop working late and came home on time. But about 2 weeks later, one day I waited until 8 o'clock and she still hadn't returned. So I started calling her. I pressed the dial button until it was hot, but all I heard was the mechanical female voice repeating, "The number you have dialed is currently unavailable." I messaged Victoria's other colleagues, but they all said she had already left work. With no other choice, I could only sit on the sofa and wait for her to come home. It wasn't until 11 o'clock that night that Victoria finally returned. Her coat was damp with the night air, her hair was a mess, and there were faint dark circles under her eyes. "Where have you been?" My voice was hoarser than I expected, laced with a tension I hadn't realized was there. She paused as she was taking off her shoes and looked up, her eyes avoiding mine. "Ethan had a fever. I went with him to the clinic to get an IV drip." The glass of water I had poured for myself that afternoon was still on the coffee table, now cold. I watched her try to force a casual smile, her fingertips unconsciously fiddling with the hem of her coat. "I couldn't reach you on the phone since 7. I fought to control my anger. Is the reception that bad at the clinic? Do you have any idea I thought something had happened to you? I was about to call the police. The emergency room was too noisy and my phone was in my bag, so I didn't hear it. Then, when I wanted to call you back, my phone was dead." She came over and tried to take my hand, but I flinched away instinctively. A flicker of hurt crossed her eyes. "Why does a grown man need you to accompany him for an IV drip? Does he not have hands or feet? I was going to the school nurse by myself for IV drips when I was in elementary school." Victoria tried to soothe me, but the fire in my chest wasn't quenched. Instead, her placating tone only fanned the flames higher. My fingers trembling, I practically lunged at her, roughly yanking open her purse, grabbing her phone, and dialing Ethan's number. The moment the call connected, before I even heard a hello from the other end, a torrent of venomous words poured out of me. Two-faced snake, spineless prick, motherless bastard, scum. Every word felt like it was ground out from between my teeth, carrying the bile and fury churning in my gut. When my throat was raw from shouting, the other end abruptly hung up. The dial tone buzzed in my ear, but it was like a lit firecracker, setting off an even bigger explosion inside me. I dialed again. I cursed again. When the dial tone turned into a cold, automated message, I threw her phone onto the sofa, grabbed my own, and dialed again, continuing to insult Ethan, focusing on his mother, with his father as a secondary target, and his entire ancestry as the blast radius. It wasn't until my number was also blocked, and all I heard was the mechanical female voice, that I felt like a punctured balloon, collapsing onto the carpet, completely drained of energy. My phone slipped from my hand and hit the floor with a thud. Suddenly a sharp, stinging pain shot across my face. It took me a couple of seconds to realize that Victoria was standing in front of me, her right hand still frozen in mid-air, her knuckles white. Her eyes were terrifyingly red, tears streaming down like broken pearls. The voice that came from her throat was hoarse and trembling. "When are you going to stop this?" Before, I was angry because I hid the fact that I was helping Ethan. This time, I just went to the hospital with him for an IV drip, and I told you as soon as I got back. And you're still angry. I apologized to you immediately, but you didn't accept it. Instead, you grabbed my phone and verbally assaulted Ethan, even using his parents' situation to attack him. That was too much. Victoria hurled many accusations at me, but I couldn't hear a single word. Only one thought remained in my mind: she had actually hit me for that scumbag. Chapter 12. We're done. I left with those words and walked out. Just like last time, I found a hotel to stay in. Victoria didn't follow me. In the hotel room, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. I picked up my phone, found Ethan on my contacts, and sent him a friend request on a social app, filling the note with all sorts of curses. I knew he would see it. I sent dozens of friend requests until I got annoyed. I put my phone aside and started to think about my situation with Victoria. To be honest, from the time I started pursuing Victoria until now, we've known each other for over 7 years. I once read a post online where someone said that breaking up with a partner of 4 years felt like a death in the family. If I really had to break up with Victoria, I felt a bit of that too. But one thing's for sure, it doesn't matter if it's 4 years or 40 years of marriage, I would never willingly put myself in a position to be cheated on. As for Victoria's claim that she was helping Ethan out of sympathy, I didn't buy it. Once might be a mistake, but a second time? Who was she trying to fool? Even if what she said was true, my family background is simple. I couldn't accept their complicated childhood friends dynamic. With that in mind, I searched on TikTok for the best way to break up with a girlfriend. We had been together for so long after all. I didn't want things to get too ugly at the end. I have to say, the algorithm is truly amazing. Before I could even finish my search, TikTok was already pushing me a ton of videos on what to do if your girlfriend has a guy best friend. In one of the videos, a girl wanted to go to a bar with her guy friend, and her boyfriend had no reaction at all. When his friend asked why he didn't mind, he just said, "She's just my girlfriend. I'm not planning on marrying her." Well, damn. I had a dark epiphany right then and there. That's right. Why the hell should I break up with her? If I broke up with her and she got together with Ethan, wouldn't I just be doing that homewrecker a favor? But if I changed my perspective, when Victoria gets anxious to marry me, I'll break up with her then. Until that day, I'd basically be sleeping with someone else's future wife for free. And since Victoria had only ever been willing to stick to conventional positions with me, what if I used her situation with Ethan to unlock more creative possibilities? Wouldn't that be even better? All I can say is, when a man turns bad, his mind gets sharp real quick. Chapter 13. After figuring things out, I didn't go back right away. I stayed at the hotel for 2 days. This time, Victoria seemed determined to have a standoff with me. She didn't contact me for the first 2 days. On the third day, she couldn't hold out any longer and called me. She took time off work and came to my office to wait for me. Her eyes were red and she looked incredibly haggard. But strangely, I didn't feel a shred of pity for her. I looked at her, sighed helplessly, and gently pulled her into my arms. "Let's go home," I said. Those 3 words made Victoria burst into tears. When we got back, I didn't say anything. I just held her and kissed her. After a tumble in the sheets, neither of us mentioned what had happened. A couple of days later, something unexpected occurred. Ethan actually accepted the friend request I'd sent him just to curse him out. He sent me a picture of Victoria resting her head on her office desk, while he stood beside her flashing a peace sign. That son of a bitch was provoking me. That evening, when Victoria came home, I showed her the picture. Her eyes darted nervously at me. Clearly, the last 2 fights had left her scared. I pulled her into my arms and told her, "I'm really fired up." I made her prove how sorry she was. At first, Victoria was reluctant, but when I threatened to go to her office the next day to confront Ethan, she gave in. Watching her, a twisted thought even crossed my mind. If Ethan ended up with Victoria, would he taste me when he kissed her? The thought only made me more excited. In the days that followed, life with Victoria was peaceful. We never had another heated argument. Ethan would occasionally provoke me, and I would use the photos he sent to unlock new experiences with Victoria. Perhaps because I stopped fighting with her, Victoria started coming home late more often. Sometimes it was because Ethan had a problem at work, sometimes he was sick, or he'd twisted his ankle, all sorts of ridiculous excuses. I didn't care anymore. Memorial Day arrived quickly. I didn't hide anything from my parents. I told them straight up that Victoria was involved with someone else, and I wasn't going to marry her. As for Victoria, when she asked, I just said my parents had other plans for the holiday. When she heard this, her expression darkened, but she didn't say a word. Time flew by, and soon it was almost Christmas. She would occasionally ask me about marriage, but I always brushed it off with "we'll see." She must have sensed the change in my attitude because she didn't dare tell me the truth when she went to see Ethan. Unfortunately for her, Ethan would always send me pictures to provoke me, and I would use every opportunity to get what I wanted from Victoria. The achievements from the joy of sex and then some were unlocked, all thanks to Ethan's assists. Later, Victoria must have said something to Ethan because he started deleting the photos shortly after sending them. But it was useless. After being burned once, I always took a screenshot immediately. Chapter 14. In the blink of an eye, it was Christmas. Victoria and I finally had it out over the issue of marriage. It started when she said she wanted to bring her parents to Louisville for a visit during the holidays. I knew what she meant. She wanted to bring her parents to discuss our wedding. In both my culture and hers, it's the man's family that initiates the marriage proposal. By doing this, she was already causing her parents to lose face. But even with her acting so humbly, I still made up a random excuse, saying my parents were planning to go on a trip for the holidays. After all, I didn't want to marry her anymore. But no matter how naive Victoria was, she must have noticed my dismissive attitude over the past year, so she yelled, demanding to know if I didn't want to marry her. Seeing her bloodshot eyes and her hysterical state, I couldn't help but feel a flicker of pity. I just told her we should break up. She had betrayed me, and I had used her for a year. We were even. I started packing my things to go home. Victoria just stood there, watching me pack my clothes into my suitcase, one item at a time. When I got to the door, she grabbed my suitcase, refusing to let me leave. I didn't struggle with her. I just looked at her coldly, watching until the light in her eyes finally died. Then I pulled my suitcase and left. After leaving the apartment, I didn't go straight home. I went to my company first to resign. I had stayed in this city for Victoria. After the breakup, there was no reason to stay anymore. Besides, the director's annual salary at my current job was about what my dad's factory cleared in a month. I might as well go back and take over the family business. Chapter 15. The day after I got home, I received a call from Victoria's mother, Martha Hayes. I maintained the proper respect for an elder on the phone. Mrs. Hayes's voice was filled with anxiety. She told me Victoria was not doing well at all. After returning home, she had locked herself in her room, refusing to eat or drink. They were worried sick and asked if Victoria and I had had a fight. I didn't think I was the one at fault, so I told Mrs. Hayes everything about Victoria and Ethan. I explained that Victoria had spent several nights at Ethan's place until very late, and I simply couldn't accept her behavior. To my surprise, upon hearing the name Ethan Cole, Mrs. Hayes became extremely agitated. She poured out a long story about Ethan. It turned out that Ethan's mother had worked in the sex trade, and Ethan was the accidental product of one of her clients. In their town, the locals treated the mother and son like filth. and forbade their own children from playing with Ethan. Mrs. Hayes also said that when Victoria was in high school, she discovered that Victoria and Ethan were getting close, which terrified her. Even though Victoria explained they were just friends, she couldn't stand it. She went straight to their house and screamed at Ethan and his mother, telling Ethan to stay away from Victoria. After that argument, Ethan's mother was so upset she ended up in the hospital and passed away not long after. Mrs. Hayes was convinced that Ethan was here to collect a debt, and that Victoria, likely feeling guilty about Ethan's mother's death, was being guilt-tripped by him into taking care of him. I never would have guessed that there was such a history between Victoria and Ethan. It turned out she had never told me the whole truth from the very beginning. If things were really as Mrs. Hayes said, and if Victoria had been honest with me from the start, we could have gone to talk to Ethan together, maybe make a one-time payment to buy off Victoria's guilt. We wouldn't have ended up like this. But it was too late. There was no going back for us. I offered my apologies and hung up the phone. Over the next few days, Mrs. Hayes called me every day, begging me to go see Victoria. She sent me pictures of Victoria, her face gaunt, all her former radiance gone. I hesitated. I hated Victoria for the pain she had caused me, but I had also taken my revenge. Seeing her in this state, I was genuinely afraid something terrible might happen to her. My mom, Helen, noticed my low spirits and quickly guessed it was about Victoria. When she asked, I confessed my worries. I was afraid something might really happen to Victoria, but I didn't want to give her false hope. My mom is a sentimental person. She suggested I go talk to Victoria one last time. After all, Victoria had been with me from age 21 to 27. She had given me the best 6 years of a young woman's life. Even if we were breaking up, we didn't have to end up as enemies. I didn't quite agree with my mom. A girl's youth is precious, but what about mine? Still, I went to see Victoria. At the end of the day, I still had feelings for her. I couldn't be that heartless. Chapter 16. My memory is still pretty good. I remembered where Victoria's family lived. When I knocked, Mr. and Mrs. Hayes opened the door. Their faces lit up with surprise and relief, as if they had found a savior. They immediately pulled me towards Victoria's room. Mrs. Hayes knocked on the door for a long time, but there was no response from inside. It wasn't until she called out, "Sincere is here, Vicky. Open the door," that the door slowly creaked open. When Victoria saw me, she threw herself at me, clinging to me as if she wanted to merge her body with mine. I gently patted her back and led her back into the room. She held my hand tightly, unwilling to let go for a second. After a long while, she finally spoke, her voice cautious. "Sincere, I've thought about it. I was wrong before. If you don't want to get married yet, I can wait. You don't like me helping Ethan, so I'll never talk to him again. If you don't believe me, I can change jobs." "It's too late, Victoria," I interrupted her. "Your mom already told me about you and Ethan. I don't know what you were thinking back then, but from the moment you helped Ethan with his work and we had that huge fight and you still didn't tell me the truth, it was already over between us. Not to mention all those times you went to take care of him. How do I know nothing happened between you two?" "I didn't," Victoria tried to explain hastily. I cut her off again. "You can glue a broken mirror back together, but the cracks will always be there. You've lied to me so many times. I can't trust you anymore. I came here this time out of respect for our many years together. I want to urge you. You've already let me down. Don't let your parents down too. Look at the state you're in. Have you thought about how worried they are? And what does Ethan's mother's death have to do with you? If you have to blame someone for her death, it should be him. He knew everyone around him hated him, yet he insisted on bothering you. He brought this on himself." I said a lot, talking until my throat was dry, as if I was venting a year's worth of resentment. By the end, Victoria had stopped talking and was just sitting there crying. I walked out of the room. Seeing Mr. and Mrs. Hayes rush to Victoria's side, I didn't linger and left immediately. I had said what needed to be said. From now on, at least my conscience would be clear. Chapter 17. After the holidays, I called David Big D Miller. David was a local from Kingsport and also my university classmate. I told him everything about Ethan Cole, hoping he could help find someone to pose as Ethan's father and go to Ethan's company to spread the word that he was the bastard son of a whore. I was willing to pay for it. It's not that I hadn't thought about getting revenge on Ethan before, but in this day and age, getting into a fistfight could land me in jail. As for causing a scene at his company, Victoria worked there too. If I made a big fuss, even if I managed to ruin Ethan, Victoria's job would inevitably be affected. I just couldn't bring myself to be that cruel to her. David had watched Victoria and me go through everything. After hearing my request, he thumped his chest and promised he would take care of it, telling me to wait for good news. A couple of days later, David sent me a video. In the video, an older man was at Ethan's company looking for him. I recognized him at once. It was David's father, Mr. Miller. When Ethan came downstairs, Mr. Miller immediately threw his arms around him, weeping and wailing, loudly proclaiming that when he was younger, he had hired a prostitute, and in a moment of pleasure, hadn't used protection. He never expected that the prostitute would actually give birth to his child. Then, he demanded that Ethan call him Dad, and preferably kowtow to him. The receptionist immediately pulled out a bag of sunflower seeds and started munching. After Mr. Miller's performance, Ethan's career at that company was definitely over. I blurred out Mr. Miller's face in the video and sent it to a gossipy former colleague of mine. While it wasn't exactly a powerful form of revenge, I finally felt like I had let off some steam. After taking over my father's factory in Louisville, Victoria called me a few times, but I never picked up. She came to Louisville to find me, but I refused to see her. Later she got Chloe Thompson, the best friend I used to bribe in college, to try and mediate. I told Chloe to spend a night with me in a hotel room. I wouldn't do anything to her, but as long as her husband didn't mind, I would consider getting back together with Victoria. After that, Chloe never contacted me again.